Hey, it's Michael, and this is the Kintsugi Podcast. I'll be back in a minute with this week's conversation about resilience. But first, if you wish to create a better life and have a better career, then please visit michaelobrienshift.com and download your free workbook on how to create a better life. In it, you'll discover ways to find more energy for the things and the people who matter most to you, so you can create a better tomorrow. Hey there, it's Michael, and welcome back or welcome to the Kintsugi Podcast. It's time for another conversation about resilience. And hopefully you caught last week's interview with Teresa on why it's so important to talk to strangers, because having a strong community, having a strong Peloton, as I would say, is key to becoming more resilient. Today, I want to talk to you about the start of 2021 because it's been a doozy. Whoa, Nelly. Often I talk about how to get off the hamster wheel, to live with more intention. That's one way to become more resilient. But this year, the start of it, it's felt like, more like a roller coaster than a hamster wheel. Or maybe a whitewater rafting trip gone badly, which leads us to this week's story. This week, as I do, doing a little pause, breathe, and reflecting, I thought back to a trip my wife and I took last January, right around this time. We went to Costa Rica to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. And if you haven't been to Costa Rica, let me just say, you got to get there. Beautiful country. Of course, when we can travel a little bit more freely. And since it was our 25th, we did it up. We stayed at a fancy pants Nat Geo eco resort, and you came in and departed via whitewater rafting. Sounds cool, right? Well, I thought it would sound really cool, so that's why we booked it. But we learned that it was a little bit of awesome sauce and a little bit of not so much. The hour trip, the first trip to get into the lodge, easy peasy lemon squeezy, a few class 2s, one class 3, just enough to get your adrenaline going, to get you pumped up for the vacation, but nothing major. All good, no issues. We had a beautiful trip. Now the trip to depart, to go back home, was 3 hours longer and definitely more challenging. Things got terrifying. Our guide, for whatever reason, he went into the rapid Bye Bye Burrito differently than the two other boats we were going downriver with. And what happened then is that we got stuck in the rapid, and then our boat or our raft started to whirlpool, and our front end, where my wife and I were sitting, and we had another couple in the back plus our guide, well, the front end started to fill with water. So we had to frantically go from side to side, trying to get the boat out of the whirlpool, try to get the boat out of the rapid. And that's when I lost my balance and fell into a raging class 4 rapid. But it gets worse. I still can vividly remember me floating underneath the boat, the blue boat. I saw its bottom as I floated underneath. And then all of a sudden I got caught in the current and I got thrusted downstream through the rapid backwards. Now, if you know anything about whitewater rafting, you'll know this. They teach you, if you fall out of the boat, try to get your feet downstream. It's the safest way to go down the river, if in case you fall out of the boat. And I know that now because it felt like I was hitting every rock and boulder through that class 4 rapid because, well, in essence, I was hitting every rock and boulder. I was taking on water. I was gasping for air. I lost my river shoe, which, when you think of it, pretty minor, considering I'm going through this class 4 rapid backwards, hitting every boulder and rock, trying to gain air, grab air, all that jazz. It lasted probably 2 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. It felt like it lasted 2 hours. And then the river, as they do, calmed. And then someone from one of the other boats, the advancing boats, grabbed me by my life preserver and hauled me into the boat for safety. And as you can imagine, I was a little shaken, but I felt like I could breathe again, have another moment to pause, breathe, and reflect. And as I reflected this week on that moment, my organic water slide, if you will, it feels eerily like a foreshadow of what was to come in 2020. Because I think last year, including the first 3 weeks of this year, it's felt like we've all been shot through a class 4 rapid going backwards. And we keep hitting every boulder and rock. And what we need is a hand to lift us up into the boat, out of the water, into safety, so we can have some calm. In this past week, at least here in the States, and I think really across the world, because we have listeners to the Kintsugi Podcast all across this wonderful planet of ours, it was a big week for the world. There was a sense of calm as we ended this past week, as we had a peaceful transition of power, and we got inspired by Amanda Gorman's poem. She's an inspiration, full stop. And I also got inspired by President Joe Biden's speech, in one passage in particular. And it goes like this. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. There are some days when you need a hand, and there are other days when you're called on to lend one. This is how we must be with one another. How true is that? I know this fully in my heart, in my mind, in my soul. I'm only here today because so many people reached out and pulled us up into safety as we're recovering from my last bad day accident, my cycling accident. So many hands reached out to us. It was amazing. And through my corporate career, I had so many coaches and mentors reach out to help me along the way in my career. I only got to the executive suite with a team of 1,000 people, big fancy office and all that jazz because so many people helped me. And of course, that guide from last year during this whitewater rafting trip gone bad, as we went through Bye Bye Burrito, I'm here today because he pulled me up into the boat. He pulled me into safety. When I think about gratitude, I think about all the people that did just that. And here's the thing, when Biden calls for any politician or any leader, whether it's in your company or in your community, when we call for unity, when we call everyone forward to build a diverse, equitable, and inclusive peloton, if you will, that job isn't easy. But you know what? Nothing worth doing ever is, but it is possible. I believe we are at an inflection point. And when you look at a point, there's one half and there's a second half. The first half was the last 4 years, and we learned a ton about each other, a ton about ourselves, including a lot over the last, say, 12 months. The second half of this inflection point is what we do going forward. We will either lend a hand to people and come together, or we will myopically drift further and further apart. One way will help us build resilience. The latter will just continue to divide us. Of course, my choice, it's easy. I'm choosing to reach out. I'm also choosing to ask for help because I believe fate, if you will, has given us something to deal with. And I know we don't all believe we can be united, but I'm hoping that maybe we can, fake it until we make it. Act as if we're united and lend a hand to someone, even if that someone doesn't see the world in the same way we do. So we have an opportunity right now to lend a hand, to reach out. Even in our virtual world, we can do that. Another part of this too, going back to Biden's speech, is that sometimes we need a hand. Often we don't want to ask for help. I used to be that way. In the early days of my recovery from my last bad day, when people asked, hey, what do you need? I was like, oh, nothing, we're all good. We're fine. And they're like, really, you've had a near-death accident. There's certainly something we can do. And what I learned is that asking for help and accepting it isn't a sign of weakness, but it's an invitation to get closer to one another. And right now, we need to get closer to each other so we can be more united. Even if we differ, even if we don't see the world the same way. So if you're in a position where you need some help, maybe you continue to feel that you're going through this massive rapid known as 2020 and 2021 backwards, and you need someone to reach out to you, Don't limit yourself. Ask for help. And if a hand's there, grab it. And if you see someone in need, reach out to them. That's how we get better. That's how we can create a better tomorrow. That's how we can all be more resilient, because we cannot be resilient on our own. When we fall down, we have to have faith to get back up again and have the awareness that we've learned something from it, but we have to gather around each other. I have an acronym called GRACE. The G stands for gratitude. The R stands for reframing. The A stands for agility or awareness. The C, community or your Peloton. The E, managing your energy. And all that ties back into becoming more resilient. So this week, as you go out into your Zoom land, out into the world, look for ways to lend a hand to someone. And if you need support, don't be bashful. Ask for that support. I know someone will be there to help you. And you can always reach out to me. You can get me through the KintsugiPodcast.com website. And one last thing before I let you go. Speaking of lending a hand, this week, I'm opening up membership to the public for the first time in a long time to my Leadership Academy. This is perfect if you're an aspiring entrepreneur or you're a corporate warrior and you don't want to go through this alone. You realize you need a community. You need coaching. So I developed the Paceline Leadership Academy for you back in 2018, and it's changed a ton of lives. People have gotten promoted, made more money, published books, been on TEDx, you name it. And those are all great reasons not to sign up. The main reason to sign up is that you want to have a life that's wealthy starting from the inside out. That you have a community, you have a coach that's in your corner to help navigate all the uncertainty, navigate all the different rapids and the bye-bye burritos that you might face in your life. So look for that on my website, look for that through my email, my blog. But this is a beautiful opportunity to help you engineer and build the type of life and career that you truly desire. So again, thank you as always for tuning in to the Kintsugi Podcast and sharing with your friends and posting a review and subscribing. Until next week's conversation about resilience, remember to pause, breathe, and reflect. And of course, have fun storming the castle. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.